Hi guys, I just wanted to start this video off by saying that I'm not trying to sell any products or redirect you to any websites. The video is about my personal experience with a medical condition that some of you may have heard of called tinnitus. And as you know, there's a lot of charlatans out there on the web that are trying to peddle all kinds of different cures and get cured quick fixes, formulas, books, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube that will act like, you know, you can pay them money and they'll show you essentially how to cure tinnitus, which isn't true. A lot of it is just nutrient guides, how to eat better, how to, you know, live a happier, like healthier lifestyle, which is pretty much available to anybody. You can go on the web and find that information out. But as you know, there is no cure, there's no pill that you can take that can fix the condition. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of my experience. Maybe it can help some other people out there that are dealing with the same things. So yeah, don't fall for any of that quackery. Let me start by describing the condition that I've been dealing with for a little over about a year. And the condition causes unwanted noises in your ear. It's essentially like a ringing noise. Some people hear a swishing or a popping noise. These noises can range from a high-pitched squeal or ringing, which is pretty much what I have, to low swish noise, beeps, pops, all kinds of different range of noises. From what I've read, most people have some form of this by the time they're older, but might not even notice it because it might be a real low volume. And there's lots of causes: medications, exposure to loud noises, ear infections. But I'll start off by telling you how I believe I contracted this illness. And I've been a musician all my life, and back in 2004 I was playing on stage in a cover band, and I was in the middle of a song when I pulled out my earplug from my left ear to hear the mix coming out of a stage monitor. And I only meant to do this temporarily, but my head was about 5 feet away from the drummer and when he hit one of his cymbals. And I knew it was bad because it hurt right then and there when I was on stage. And the next day I noticed a little ringing, but it went away fairly quickly, so I thought it was like when you go to a concert and a lot of the kids, you know, go to the show and now wear earplugs. The next day, you know, your ears would ring, but eventually it would go away. You know, problem solved and lesson learned. But after that incident in 2004, I never experienced tinnitus, but I could tell when I listened to an iPod or headphones on my computer that the volume seemed to be a little better or clearer in my right ear than in my left ear. And I went to an audiologist who did some tests and said that both ears were in pretty good shape, but my left ear was just registered a few decibels below where normal is, probably from noise-induced acoustic trauma, which is a technical way of saying that loud noises that caused some minor damage to my ear. There's like a middle part of your ear called the cochlea, and it has these microscopic little hair cells, and when they become damaged, the way that I read it on the internet was it's kind of like a forest with trees, and the wind comes, which is the sound, and if the wind is strong enough, like a storm, then it can break some of the parts of the trees down, and that's kind of what's happening inside our ear when we have damage from loud noise. But since then I always wear earplugs at concerts, but for the most part I felt fine and I didn't notice anything. And then fast forward to September of 2010, and for the last 3 weeks I had a pretty bad head cold, and whenever I would swallow, my left ear would crackle and pop, and it was just overall painful. And I always had a little bit of ringing in there, but nothing super loud. I could tell I was getting a little bit of noise in my left ear. And as it was a weekend, I went to an urgent care here in San Diego, the Sharp Reese Medical Center here in downtown San Diego, where I had a resident doctor who, you know, essentially looked in my ear for a few seconds and said, "Yeah, that's an ear infection," and proceeded to prescribe me antibiotic ear drops 3 times a day for the next few weeks. The ear drops, I think, are what really caused my tinnitus. I think that there may have already been some damage there that was minor, but this really pushed it over the edge. And the eardrops are neomycin, polymycin, hydrocortisone eardrops that I used. And I ended up doing some research after my tinnitus got extremely worse after using these eardrops within weeks, and I read an article on the web that stated from the FDA that neomycin can induce permanent sensorineural hearing loss due to cochlear damage, mainly destruction of hair cells in the organ of corti. But I took the eardrops as prescribed, and knowing now what I knew then, I would have never took those eardrops. And it doesn't mean that maybe my hearing wouldn't have gotten worse, but I definitely think that was the needle in the coffin for me. That was like what really destroyed my hearing in my left ear. My cold eventually got better, as did the crackle that was in my ear. One of the things I noticed before I took the medication was that sometimes if I would hear wind going around my ear, it was a little distorted, but I never had the ringing in there. And then, but within 6 weeks after I did, I was restless, I was having a hard time sleeping, I was anxiety ridden, and I was depressed. My left ear was ringing loud, and being a musician and an artist myself, I felt like, if you were to take the eyes away from a pilot or the feet from somebody who's a runner or something like that, I depend on my ears to hear music and play music. And so I was pretty worried, and right away I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I told him exactly what happened, and he said, well, I'm going to go ahead and give you a steroid injection, but the damage may have already been done. It's been a month since this has happened, and of course it didn't really help. And he basically told me I've had ringing in both of my ears since 1989, and deal with it, He was a nice guy, but he basically kind of just let me know that there's not much. You just have to kind of habituate towards it, and then maybe in a year I won't even notice it. So my condition is subjective tinnitus, which means they can't really see it, or nobody else can hear it except for me, which makes it hard to treat. If you have like wax build up in your ear, they can always remove that and clean it out. So long story short, I ended up with an expensive medical bill and a loud ringing in my left ear that might possibly be there for the rest of my life. And there's no doubt in my mind that the original physician was negligent and careless in his diagnostics. And if I had known that these eardrops caused tinnitus, I would have stayed as far away as possible. Over the last year, I've been examined by one of the leading researchers in tinnitus at UCSD, and was basically told there's a lack of funding in this field. But because of the large amount of returning veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq with hearing issues as well, that the government is up to about $15 million a year in funding grants, which seems pretty low in my opinion. But I think the reason why there's doing a lot more research now than what they used to do is because a lot of people are listening to iPods really loud. Antibiotics are prescribed very commonly. We live in a louder society, I think, than we used to. So I think that's why maybe there wasn't as much awareness about it maybe 50, 60 years ago. I know my grandfather fought in World War II, and he had it, and I'm sure he was around, bombs and rifles and everything going off. But it wasn't really until looking into the web that I found out how widespread it is. So I played in some, bands with other people that have it, some worse than me, some not as worse. But it changes your life. It's really debilitating, and it's something that you have to manage, and there are ways to manage it out there. I found a newfound sympathy for people that struggle with debilitating illnesses. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a lot of research going on right now. There's a guy named Will Rossellini. You can Google his name, and he's doing some research in Belgium right now with transponders, which is like an electrical signal that stimulates like the parts of the brain that are responsible for the hyperactivity of the neurons, which is really how we interpret sound. So it's kind of like not restoring your hearing, but it's disrupting the part that makes you hear the noise in your ear. And there also are some places in Europe right now that are doing testing to try to regrow the cells that are damaged in the inner ear. And they've been able to do that in animals, primarily. They see this happen in nature with birds, because birds can be exposed to loud noises just like we can, and get tinnitus just like we can. And 3 weeks later, they'll regrow all the cells in their ear, and they'll be fine, and their hearing will be fine. But they've been around for millions of years, so I guess they've got the chance to evolve their hearing better than we have. But so there is hope out there. There are doing a lot of things that are trying to fix it. And in the meantime, one of the things I do is I listen to like the sound of like white noise or purple noise. You can Google it on the net. You can go to ATA, American Tinnitus Association.org, and they have CDs that you can download or that you can buy. There's lots of sound files. I mean, you could even find a sound file on YouTube, of a waterfall. That seems to help. And I'm in the process of possibly buying a little fountain that I can put next to my bed, and that will kind of help mask the noise and help me habituate for it. But sorry for the long rant. Just I want to leave you with some of the solutions, and let you know that that there is other things out there that you can use to help. And sometimes I have physical symptoms in my ear, like some of you people out there do, like stuffiness and pain. But I could deal with that as compared to the most severe symptom, which is obviously the ringing. And there's also, I looked into a device called Neuromonics, which is not really a masker, but it's like a headphone device, and it helps isolate the particular frequency you hear in your head and kind of envelop it in a song file. I've heard some mixed things about it. A lot of people don't like the music that they use, and that it takes quite a while to really gain any kind of promise. But and there also is another one called RTMS, repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, but that's kind of in the developmental phases right now. They have to show at least 50% of the clinical trial participants have to have a significant increase in or decrease in their tinnitus level. And so they have it in Canada right now. I don't know if they've actually approved it in the US for tinnitus. I think they're going through clinical studies right now for it. And as far as everything else goes, it's pretty common. I think people know that if you're dealing with this condition, you don't want to drink a whole lot of coffee or highly caffeinated drinks, sport drinks. Try to avoid salty foods or large amounts of alcohol and things like that. And try to stay active. It's hard for me because I notice that if I lift weights, the ringing gets louder and the tinnitus gets worse, and the same thing when I run. So it's kind of made exercise harder for me. But relaxation is the key. And go ahead and leave a comment below or write me back if you have any questions. And just wanted to let you know there really should be more awareness about this horrible condition. Thanks, guys.